Well, g'day everyone. Jesse's going to start our live stream up, and if you'd like to grab a seat, we're going to have a few minutes of Q&A. So you might recognise him from our video before. I'm going to invite Jono Nicholls forward to our socially distant microphone over there. Well, welcome, Jono.
Thanks.
For the purposes of people who are watching in online land, as we referred to it earlier, the camera is just over where Sue is, but feel free to say good day to people on the floor as well. Friends, I wonder, has anyone got any questions, thoughts, reflections? Remember keeping them fairly short so that I can repeat them for the stream. Anything that you kind of want to ask about based on what we've seen in today's service? Yeah, Pam. So great question from Pamela there. When we watch KAC online at home, we can often be spectators, and that's fairly obvious because we're sitting on our couch or in our bed watching the TV or our screen. But can't we be just as much a spectator when we come to church here on site? What do you reckon, Jono?
I think they're both wrong. I think in business terms, or I'm a school teacher, so in schools we often say 90% of the jobs are done by 10% of the people, and it can be the same in churches. It really should be 100% of the jobs are done by 100% of the people, and likewise in the church. So my challenge would be seat warmers, they're called. They do a good job at that. My challenge and question would be, if you do reflect on yourself and consider, how am I serving the church? If the answer is honestly no, then I'd really encourage you to have a good hard look at why we attend church, and what church is, and then what I'm called to do as a Christian. And I'm called to serve others. And sometimes that's hard work. Sometimes it's difficult. I mean, it's kind of hard to be loving sometimes, isn't it? But I am called by Christ to serve others. So I'd say you're spot on. It's just as easy to come to church on a Sunday and sit and receive and give nothing in return. And there are a whole bunch of reasons why people do that, I think. Sometimes people, like I said, sometimes people don't think they have gifts. Everybody does. It just may not be the ones that our world recognises as important. I remember as a young man, very young man, I went to a working bee, and I didn't know what job I'd get. I thought I'd be mowing the lawns, or I didn't know what I'd do. And the organiser of it looked at me and smiled and said, and for you, Jono, I have the toilets. And in my, I suppose in my pride, that kind of burnt me a bit. It did. It's like, why? Why in there? My real sinfulness thought, put someone in there who, can't really do anything else. Isn't that horrible? Isn't that horrible? But human. Yeah. So I would say to my young self, that was probably 20 years ago, stop thinking so highly of yourself, Jono. Do what needs to be done, and do it because the Lord sees, not because men and women see. Does that make sense? But I'd say you're spot on.
Yeah. Just as a word of testimony too, by the way, Jono, I've got to say, I think that a clean toilet is one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give to people at church. In all seriousness, one of the people or persons who ministers to me at a most profound level is on a Sunday night after 6 p.m, the very last job that Jess and I often have of an evening is to put out the bins by the side of the road, rain, hail or shine, and it's often just a drag. And sometimes my very favourite person or people, I don't know who, but sometimes somebody will actually do that job ahead of us. They go and they take the bins to the road, and it's just the most beautiful thing to look out and go, it's done. I can go home and have a cuppa with Jess. It's just the most special thing. And so, you know what, you might be skilled in different areas, but sometimes those things that we think are ignoble, cleaning toilets, taking out bins, they are the most beautiful things that you can do. And that's not to downplay the significance of all of the other gifts as well, but it's often a case of shifting our thinking in terms of what is valued, and sometimes you'd be surprised just how valuable the things that you can do are. Other comments, questions, thoughts? Yeah, Steve. Great question. So if God calls us together to be church, to be people who serve one another, who gives us gifts, do we then sin if we refuse to use our gifts in church? What do you reckon, Jono?
Yeah. Yeah. If
That's what I like about you, Jono. You tell it like it is.
I think if you clearly are gifted in some manner and you stubbornly refuse to use it, then yes. If you are gifted and unaware that you are gifted and not using it, then I would say no. But if numerous people are saying to you, whatever it is, and you truly do have that gift, and you out of stubbornness refuse to do it, I would say yes, you are. If you're in a church of 1,000 where there are 100 people with the voices of angels, and you too have the voice of an angel, but there's just no place for you to sing, then I'd say that so be it. That's a different scenario. But if it's out of a stubborn heart and a hard heart, saying, I know that I have this gift and I am not going to honour Christ with it, I'm not going to serve the church, I'd say that you are.
It's a good one to get us thinking.
I'm happy to be told I'm wrong on that, but...
Hi, Rhoda. Yeah, so it's a great thing that Rhoda's father said to her, that when you're born, you're given many gifts, but you might have to get out of your comfort zone in order to find them. What do you reckon, Jono?
I lived in Indonesia for 6 years. I remember this thing every day. Because outside my comfort zone, I had to learn new language. Every day, I'm in my comfort zone.
So it's brought to mind living in Indonesia, crossing cultures.
I think by nature many of us are insecure. I look at students at school who are incredibly gifted, and they can't see it, but they are. And the thing that holds them back is insecurity. So with students, what I try and work on is not so much just telling them that they're gifted, but providing small opportunities, very small opportunities. And over a period of 6 years, you increase those opportunities. You almost do it so they don't realise it's happening. But what actually starts to happen over a period of time is they actually start to recognise that they can do it, and they start to use those gifts. So I think you're right. Quite often, having gifts and using them can be confronting. Were you going to say something, Aidan?
Yeah, that's okay, but...
I grew up playing music. More instruments than you could imagine. And I still don't like playing music in front of people. I actually don't like it. I find it very... you feel very exposed when you play music in front of people, like your heart's on show, if that makes sense. But in service, you push beyond that awkwardness, and you say, I'm going to do this. Before I do a sermon at church, I don't know if you find this, I don't feel good. I don't like it.
Are you saying you're basically quite shy in front of people?
No, but I feel that my heart is put out there on a pedestal for people to say well done or to criticise. It's confronting. And afterwards, my natural tendency, and I wouldn't say I'm a shy person, afterwards my natural tendency if I preach or something is I see the door and I want out. I want out. And if I feel that, I'm sure other people do with their gifts as well.
Got a question from Tracy. Before we throw to Tracy, I just wanted to pick up on something you said there, Jono. I thought it was interesting you mentioned the idea of giving people small opportunities to serve. Friends, one of the things we want to encourage at church is for people to serve. Sometimes there can be a feeling like, man, if I sign up to a roster, I'm just going to be doing that till I die. Please know that if you'd like to ever test drive a ministry and just have a go at something, you're more than welcome to approach us and say, you know what, I'd really love to have a go at public Bible reading or whatever it might be. And look, if I hate it, or if I'm no good at it, let me know, but I'd love to have a go at it. And we'll look for opportunities for you to be able to have a go and see what you reckon. It doesn't have to be a case of I've signed up and therefore I'm committed to this forever. Now, Tracy, you had a question. It's a great question from Tracy. Something we talked about a little bit last week as we thought about church and how we're not just individuals, but we are actually church together. Jono picked up on the fact that there is a culture of individualism out there in society that we often catch kind of by default because we're in the world, even if we aim not to be of the world, so to speak. And the question is, Jono, as a school teacher and in your experience, where do you see that culture of individualism coming into play?
I don't think individualism is a new thing. I think it started in the garden, where Satan says to Eve, if you eat of the fruit, you will be like God. You'll know good and evil. I don't think I've ever actually heard this preached on, this concept, but I think Satan was telling a half-truth. They're the best lies. It's a half-truth. He was saying, right now, God is the centre of your world and your universe. God is everything to you. If you eat this fruit, you will become like God. Because instead of God as the centre of your universe, you will become that centre. You will become the pivot around which you move. Everything will be about you. So from the very beginning, I think our hearts, from the fall, were inclined towards a culture of me. You look at Cain and Abel. What was the problem there? It's a culture of me. You look at Joseph and his brothers. What was the problem there? There's a culture of me or us. Our father is neglecting us, so we're going to kill Joseph. It moved all the way through Judas. It's a culture of me. I want the money. So I'd say it's an age-old problem. All our kings throughout history, why are they horrible tyrants? Because they've got a culture of me. Bow down and worship me. I am your God. Serve me. Christianity says, it's not me, it's you, and I should serve you. I should serve Christ by serving you, which is countercultural. In students and young people, and myself, our society promotes individualism. I mean, look at the HSC. I say to my students in year 11 and 12, the class that does the best is the class that help each other. If you are excellent at writing study notes, share them with your peers. If you've written 100 essays, share them with your peers. If you found a great resource, share it with your peers. Because the better you do, the better they do, and the better they do, the better you do. It's a culture of improvement. They don't like that. They don't like that. Because they say, the HSC says, it's not about others, it's about you. You want to be number one. Make sure everybody else is below you. So I see it at school in the way that school is structured for the HSC and for education. I see education changing to be no longer, here's what we deem to be important for you to learn, rather follow your heart, pursue your interests and your hobbies. I'm not sure if you all saw the changes to the New South Wales curriculum that's coming. It's much more pursue your interests. No cohorts, but sort of float between them at your own pace. It's very, very different. So I think our whole society encourages individualism. Where do I see it? In the church, I don't know what it was like in the 1950s, 60s or 70s. In fact, I don't really know what it was like in the 1980s because I can't remember, I was too little. But I think for the church, the culture of individualism is, if my needs aren't being met, then you better do this or else I'll leave. Or if my needs aren't being met, then that's your error and your problem. I've only been teaching for 15 years, but the thing I've seen change in that time is, in my first few years of teaching, I'd say to my history students, over this year, you'll write 100 essays, if not more. You'll write an essay on every single dot point. And there was really a culture of ownership where students would say, righto. When I was at school, I never thought anything was the teacher's problem, ever. If I did poorly in an exam, I went, oh, yeah, I didn't study. Or I'm not great at that subject. The culture I've seen change is, it is very much my fault. Where have I let students down? Where have I not held up my end? So I think individualism impacts us all. I think it's been here forever. And as Christians, we should say, well, if that's true, if my heart is inclined towards myself, how do I turn it to be focused on Christ and others? How do we do that? Through serving.
As a millennial, it's comforting to know that the problem is not just kids these days. Although perhaps that shouldn't be comforting so much as it's challenging to all of us that this is something that we've always had to contend with. I had a question from up the back. That's right.
As a little boy, I desperately wanted that job.
Fond memories of the dunny man there. All right, and a couple more. So Tony, yep. It's a challenge, isn't it? Spanish flu closed the churches, but the outcry caused churches to reopen. It makes you kind of question, or at least want to ask the question, are we as dedicated a church as they are? Continue? That's right. That's a really special thing to remember, isn't it? That idea that, we don't always think of Jesus as present. We're mindful of the Spirit who he says is with us, reminding us of what he said, but actually, despite the greatness of Christ as creator and redeemer and the one who'll come again to judge the quick and the dead, he's also with us when 2 or 3 are gathered in his name. Isn't that a marvellous truth, something that we should really celebrate? Amen, Tony.
I go to Marylon Theatre and I pay a lot of money for a seat, so I can't see why wouldn't I pay for a seat in church? I can't see. To me, church is just a weekly injection of my faith.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, we hope it's a real encouragement. And Joe, definitely, that's a great note to finish on. Joe's pointed out that there is a real difference to, watching from home via the internet, via a device, to being here with other Christians and being able to encourage one another, see one another, to know that we're not on our own. Friends, we better pull it up there in terms of Q&A for the sake of our recording, but feel free, let's keep chatting about these things as we go, reminding one another of who we are as church together. Just like to remind you again, keep on signing up for KSE On-Site. It's the same sign-up address each week, so you'll find the form online. I would love to see you again next week. Don't feel as though there won't be space for you. Just come along, because we love to see you. And being a deacon, I get to say the deacon bit. Remember, friends, we are called to be church together through Jesus, the one who died for us, the one who lives for us, the one who has redeemed us and formed us into his church. May remembering that great truth give you peace today and through your whole life. Indeed, as you go in peace to love and serve the Lord. In the name of Christ, amen. Amen.